It was the late 1980s. I was employed as a graveyard shift supervisor for a security company in Citrus Heights, California, and had been for a few years. I'd worked for a couple of different places before, so I was pretty experienced at this kind of work, which, as you will see, becomes important later in my story. Anyway, I had a few guys working for me, so I did a lot of driving around to see how things were going for my officers. One night I got a call from a guard's wife who said her husband, I'll call him John, was sick enough that he couldn't come in to do his shift. I said I'd take care of it and told her to wish him well for me. Turns out this is my day off, so another guy, Alan, was covering for me. I called Alan, told him he was going to be a man short tonight, so he should find a replacement. He was fine with that. 10 minutes later, and I get a call back from Alan. Nobody was available tonight. Since it was my day off, it would be a big help if I could cover John's shift. I was reluctant, but said I'd take care of it. After all, that's why they pay me the big bucks. So I drove out to the site. I knew the address, but this was a property I hadn't actually visited before, and John, the sick guard, had mentioned it was hard to find the entrance. That's because the place was all overgrown and had been for many years. But the old lady had enough money to get a security detail to keep an eye on the property, and that's why I was there. After pulling into a couple of blind openings and hedges that led to dead ends, I came across an overgrown driveway that went back a ways into more vegetation, then opened up on the house. It was a big house, not one of those cheap stucco jobs from the 50s and 60s that you see all over the greater Sacramento area. This was a big wood-sided two-story joint with a ceramic tile roof. It even had its own water tower connected to the house. A couple of overgrown palm trees grew on either side and kind of bent over the place. The house and grounds were pitch black. I'd heard that the place still had power, so I expected at least some kind of light from inside or outside the house, but it was completely dark. I got out of my car, grabbed my flashlight, and started my first walk around the property. Based on the upstairs windows, I'd say the house's second floor had at least 6 bedrooms, maybe 5 plus a bathroom or 2. Ivy covered a lot of the north side of the house, and out back there was a patio that could hold a family reunion. I walked across the patio and looked through the windows into the kitchen. There were old boxes on the floor, and it looked like cat litter on the counter. Some dirty dishes were in the sink, and I finished my first loop. Nothing exciting to report. Got back into my car, turned on the radio, picked up a book, and I read for about 45 minutes and went out for my next rounds. Once again, uneventful. I ended up repeating this pattern 4 more times with no surprises, no unexpected noises other than a car driving down the road or a distant dog barking, those kind of things. But on the next loop, as I passed by the east side of the house, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. I shined my flashlight over. It was a basement window I hadn't noticed before because of the shrubs. I had to take a few careful steps to get past the shrubs and roots on the ground. I bent way over, shined my light into the window. That's when I caught a whiff of something rotten. Maybe an animal had gotten inside somehow, died, whatever, you know. Down on the floor, I saw an old water heater, a worn-out carpet. It was rolled up in a corner of the floor. But suddenly a breeze picked up, and the rotten smell got really strong. I gagged and almost puked, and then I was running down the road out in front of the house. I was breathing hard, could hardly catch my breath, and I was scared out of my wits. I realized I didn't know why I was running, but I had this horrible, awful feeling, and I was breathing so hard that my lungs burned. I knew I had seen something in the basement that scared the shit out of me, but I couldn't remember what it was. I stopped running, took a few small steps, tried to calm down and catch my breath. Then I turned around and tried to take a step back in the direction of the driveway. My heart leapt in my chest and fear said, "Don't go in there." I pulled out my radio and I wanted to call Alan to tell him there was an intruder in the house, but I realized I couldn't give him a description because of what I hadn't seen. I just couldn't make something up. They'd want to call the cops and I'd have to get involved in extra hours waiting for them, helping them go through the house. After all, I had access to the keys. I eventually convinced myself that I should just go back, get into my car, drive it out onto the road, and park there for the next hour and a half of my shift. To hell with checking on that damned house. And now it's been about 30 years since that night, and I still don't know what I saw in the basement. And when I try to remember, all that stands out is the lost time, and especially that weird stench, which I'll never forget. It still makes the hair on the back of my neck stand on end, even now.